It's all over but the crying for the Memphis Grizzlies. OKC handles Memphis in game two, backs against the wall for the Beale Street Ballers, but the Thunder executed their perfect game plan.
You are Locked On Thunder, your daily Oklahoma City Thunder podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Let's get it going on the Locked On Thunder podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I am your host, media member and beat writer for Thunder on SI, Rylan Stiles. Follow me on Twitter at Rylan_Stiles. Follow the show on Twitter at LOThunderPod. Email the show, LOThunderPod@gmail.com. On today's show, we're diving into game two, which was a beatdown of the Memphis Grizzlies, and the Thunder continue to dominate Memphis, and they executed their formula for playoff wins perfectly. To Memphis's credit, they did play better. They made good on their promise. They just don't have enough to compete with the likes of Oklahoma City. I think that when you dive into game two, you're talking about all the things OKC did well. What was the biggest key to the game on yesterday's show? A fast start. Memphis should have been the more desperate team. Memphis should have been the team working harder. Memphis should have been the team winning the hustle battle. Did not happen. OKC throws the first punch. They actually lead by a wider margin after the first quarter in this game than they did on Sunday. Credits Memphis, the lead only swelled to 23 instead of 50, but alas, the Thunder still get a win. And obviously, Memphis is no threat. Memphis will be lucky to win a game, and their path to winning a game is out of their control. We can talk more about that tomorrow. The Thunder should make quick work of Memphis, probably shouldn't even need a game five to discard the Grizzlies. They will face much tougher tests next round and in rounds past that should they advance. But tonight, they did execute what is going to be their formula in the playoffs. They got out to a hot start and played harassing defense, really muddied up Memphis's offense. They couldn't get clean shots. They kept laying bricks. You kept hounding them for turnovers. It was a thing of beauty to start. The Thunder build a big cushion. It gives them some leash. And to Memphis's credit, again, they didn't roll over unlike Sunday. They cut it down to an 8-point game. And when this lead got cut into single digits, and it happened twice in that third quarter, what happened? A couple SGA threes back to back, and the lead grows. Now you start the fourth quarter. Fourth quarter, you're only up by 10, 11. You feel like Memphis could go on a run with Shai on the bench. And instead, it was Jalen Williams to step up and lead this Thunder team and put the hammer down on this game and put the nail in the coffin for this Grizzlies season. And that happened tonight, and that happened on Sunday. What's been the biggest question marks about this Thunder team? And I'm talking actual question marks. Obviously, they're young. But even for as historically dominant as they were in the regular season, there were still some basketball things that you questioned. You question, do they have a number two option? That's very tough. It's very tough in your second ever playoff run to expect Jalen Williams to be the number two option that is championship caliber. And another question was, what happens when the shots aren't falling? What happens when you just can't hit threes? Both those things happened tonight, and the Thunder responded perfectly to each of them. In this game, in that third quarter, what let Memphis crawl back into this game, and even though they got it to an 8-point lead, it never felt like they would overtake the Thunder, but at least it got more lively as a series than it has at any point to date in the first round. The Thunder were not hitting any shots, but they did not let that impact their defense. They could lean on their defense to pull this game out of the mud, to spark transition opportunities, to get their offense back on track, buying them time until the shots started to fall. And that's the versatility of this Thunder team. If everybody's clicking, if everybody's hitting their shots, if everybody's playing at their apex, this team can win a boat race. This team can blow you out via offense. But what happens when that's not going on? The Thunder can blow you out because of their defense. And defense travels. Defense is more sustainable. Defense is something that you can count on. You either have it or you don't. And it happens in the playoffs all the time, where you see an offense might have a lackluster night, but a team is still able to gut out wins because they just simply got more stops. OKC did that tonight whenever their lead slipped to 8. It was their defense that kept this thing afloat for OKC long enough to have the couple Shai threes, long enough to have that fourth quarter from Jalen Williams. Jalen Williams can only play the 2 games in front of him. I hear you that it's only been 2 games. I hear you that it's only the first round, and I hear you that Memphis is no true test. But all he can do is play these first 2 games. Right? We don't get to see how it ends yet. And so far, he's 2 for 2. Because this same thing happened in game 1. First quarter ends, OKC's only up by 12. You're thinking, okay, on Sunday, only down 12, Shai's on the bench in the second quarter. Jalen Williams leads you to a 30-5 run. Fourth quarter ends, you just got it within 8. Your offense is feeling the best that it's felt this entire series, the best that it's felt in a week. And it's only a 10-point game. Shai's on the bench. This is your time to make a run. This is the time to build on a bounce-back game from Jaren Jackson Jr., and instead, it's Jalen Williams who leads the way as just a steadying presence for this Thunder offense as a facilitator, as a guy who looks extremely comfortable getting to his spots, and as a defensive disruptor. As he was a +8 in the fourth quarter. He only missed a couple shots in the fourth quarter, had 3 assists, 4 rebounds, and just looked in control. He didn't look sped up. He wasn't trying to do too much. He wasn't shying away from the moment. He wasn't passing up good opportunities. Again, he got to where he wanted to get to on the floor, which is a stark contrast from where he was a year ago. And that development has been a thing for Jalen Williams. It's what's gotten him to be an all-star. It's especially what's gotten him to play over the last 8 games of the regular season at a number 2 caliber player. If you just look at his averages from the last 8 games of the season, he's been spectacular since coming back from that hip injury against Denver. Like, if you look at it from March 10th till now, his averages look the part. His play on the court looks the part. And so far, he's played the part. And this is all while SGA has not had anywhere close to an SGA game yet this season. You've gotten 2 lopsided wins because the other stuff has just simply gotten better. And we talked a lot at the end of the regular season. Are we overthinking this? Is it possible that the Thunder just pick up where they left off from the regular season and really impress in the postseason? To date, they have. And we'll see how long they can continue to play this way. But I think that Jalen Williams is a story of this game, and that formula is a story of this game, because ideally, when you play a tougher team, baked into that is going to be games where you just don't shoot well and you just don't have good offense. But what can you do to get out of that rut? You can turn to SGA. You can hope that Jalen Williams either grows that lead after it slips or at least keeps you afloat. And you can lean on your historically great defense. Check, check, check. Right? They're clearing hurdles. They're showing you an identity that is sustainable, an identity that's good enough, an identity that you can really believe in when you're watching the Oklahoma City Thunder. So the question marks are still there. They've got to do it against better teams and then later rounds. But again, this team can only play the 2 postseason games in front of them. They can't magically go play a better team. And to take care of business this way, and to not let Memphis off the mat, and to grow a commanding 2-0 series lead, and to have the fate of Memphis' season resting in game 3, because if you go down 3-0 to this team, it's all over but the crying. It was impressive work for OKC to still have that same hunger, to still have that same edge about them defensively. You have to continue to preach that that's not just lip service when they talk about 0-0 mentality, when they talk about their identity as a team. It's what they live by. and it's what they exude on the floor. But Jalen Williams is a lot of credit. Chet Holmgren, a lot of credit for him. Alex Caruso perhaps had the most impactful game of the night. We'll talk about him coming up as well. But first, I want to say right now, our good friends over at Game Time, go check out Game Time today. There's nothing like the atmosphere of the NBA playoffs. In the Paycom Center, the first two games, it's been electric. Every bucket, every stop, every moment has felt huge. The electric Paycom Center Arena needs you in it, wearing your t-shirts and being loud. With Game Time, you can be a part of that environment, but without the stress of hunting for tickets. Game Time makes it fast and easy to get playoff tickets, even when demand is sky high. Prices on the app actually go down closer to tip-off, and the last-minute deals can help you save up to 60%. Check it out today. I love Game Time because they have all-in pricing. No surprise fees at checkout. What you see is what you pay. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Go download the Game Time app, create your account, use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms and conditions apply. Again, create your account, redeem code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Download the Game Time app today. What time is it? Game time. We're back on the Lockdown Thunder podcast, on the Lockdown Podcast Network, your teams every day. Thank you so much for making us your first listen every single morning, every single day. We're here for you talking Thunder basketball. OKC, 118-99. They just dominate on the glass, 55-42. They force 14 turnovers, only give it away 7 times. They hold Memphis to shooting 42-32 and 78 shooting splits. They win points in the paint. They lose second chance points by 1, and they thoroughly beat Memphis in fast break points, 21-3. The rebounding numbers is what stood out the most. You have Edey, you have Jaren Jackson Jr., who's a bad rebounder for his size, but he still has size. OKC swarms the basketball. And not only have they brought in Isaiah Hartenstein and Alex Caruso, who give you more impactful size in their positions and in their roles than you had a year ago. But the identity of this Thunder team is like a gang tackling football team, right? Whenever they swarm to the football and bring down that tough running back. It's everybody crashing the glass. It's the elite level of which they tip the ball out. Something as simple as like these tip rebounds. They make it so it's not just luck. It's not just happenstance, because everybody's engaged. Everybody's tracking the carom of the ball off the rim, and everybody's in the right position to capitalize. When you can't haul it in with one guy, they can tip it to somebody close by, because the Thunder are always close to the basketball. They're never far away from that pumpkin. That's the difference in these two teams. The will, the want to. Who's the first to the floor? In every scenario there's a loose ball, it's someone wearing Thunder blue. That's your answer. It's crazy. It's crazy that the Thunder just outwork teams with this talent gap. And they do it whether they're up by 25 or losing or in an 8-point game. They do it relentlessly, and that builds upon itself over time. And a player who exemplifies that is Alex Caruso, who came off the bench in 23 minutes and showed you exactly why you go get Caruso. I wrote about this for Thunder on SI with an exclusive interview with Caruso. You can go read that. But he's a 16-game player. We talk about 82 versus 16-game players. Memphis has a lot of good 82 players. They don't have very many 16-gamers that you want to help you on your quest to try to go win a championship. Caruso's game, as he put it, correlates to the postseason. He's a plus 18 in the plus-minus department, a team high. 13 points on 3 for 6 shooting from 3. He went 5 for 10 from the floor. He ends up with 4 rebounds. He gets 3 steals. He gets a block, and he gets 3 assists to boot. Caruso is just if you could make a Thunder supporting cast member in a laboratory, it would be Alex Caruso, because he wins you the hustle stats. He's an elite defender. And then offensively, he's a connector and a play finisher. When the ball gets swung to him, something's going to happen. Either he's going to take an open 3 and you feel really good about that. He's going to make the right pass, but the simple one to where he's not letting the defense scramble back in rotation, or he's going to be able to drive to the rim and create something there as well. He's a versatile player on both ends. His scalability defensively to just completely take away Jaren Jackson Jr. whenever he's on him. And Jaren Jackson Jr. had a bounce back night in the box score. On the court was not that impressive. I mean, on the court, if he does not have the first shot, right, if he does not have that look he wants when he receives the ball, he's terrified to put the ball on the deck. He's terrified to go make something happen. And so he hit some tough floaters, and so did Ja Morant, and you got to concede those and live with those because at least they were tough shots. But Alex Caruso did a great job holding him up in the post whenever he was on him. The Thunder did a great job of showing two in the post to force the ball out of his hands. But Caruso deserves a ton of credit for what he did defensively on their best players. And the contagiousness of his heart and hustle rubs off on his teammates who would be doing the dirty work anyway, but it's easier to do so once someone else already gets in there and you want to kind of match that energy. And his play style certainly gets the Paycom Center rocking. This game, I did think that another thing you can take away from it is the rotations. I think that this is what you can expect whenever games are more competitive, whenever teams are a bit tougher. You put Jay Will in there at the end of the first quarter. Talked about it on Game 1 recap. I like that idea because you're starting with two bigs, and if you want to blanket this game and as much rim protection as possible, you either have to yank one of them off the floor pretty much immediately to stagger them, or you can let them have a little bit of a longer leash and then close the first quarter with your guy on the floor in SGA, who's going to be initiating almost everything in that setting, and steal 3 game minutes. You know, he played 3:05, which will technically be classified as 4 minutes, but you know he played 65 seconds, right, of that 4 minutes. Playing Jay Will there because of the longer TV timeouts, because of the quarter stoppage, you get some really valuable rest for Chet and Hartenstein, who have not had to be pushed to gaudy minute numbers just yet. But again, next round and in the future, they're going to have to be in those small segments at the end of quarters. Having a guy like Jay Will in there is going to be very valuable, even though it's only for 4 minutes, because the upside is there in terms of a guy who can hit threes, and his technique is so much better defensively that you feel good about him as a defender for 4 minutes at the minimum. Because in this game, they had a long rebound that got away from OKC, and it set up this situation where Memphis has the number advantage, and they have at the top of the key Ja on Jay Will. Jay Will stays with him laterally. He walls up at the rim, and Ja Morant dribbles it off his foot. And that goes down as a stop for Jay Will against Ja one-on-one. Like, that was a very valuable stretch, even though he didn't record a stat outside of a rebound. He was a +5, but I think that stealing that rest for his fellow bigs was big, and otherwise you're playing your better players the entire time. And that's what they did tonight. And shout out to Wiggins, who in 8 minutes had 8 points and a steal. I think that there's some lineups where his defense isn't where it needs to be, in the sense of like scaling up to defend bigger players. And this is something that he's been open about, of not being comfortable in defending bigger wings and bigger forwards. And there's a lot of lineups where to play Wiggins, you have to give him those matchups, which are not conducive to his style. So I think that the Thunder are going to have games like this where even if he's having a great offensive night, you still only play him 8 minutes just because of the defensive side of things. But they can find lineups clearly like they did in Game 1, where he's more so defending guards, and you can put guys around him who can scale up and who can take on the bigger assignments. But ultimately, I think what happened tonight, more so than anything, even the defense, was just that you found a combination that worked. Like you couldn't take Caruso off the floor. You couldn't take Cason off the floor. You just could not take these guys off the floor, to where somebody had to see a minute reduction because of it. And it happened to be Wiggins tonight. But you go back to J-Dub, who finishes with 24 points. He has 5 assists, 6 rebounds, and a steal. He shoots 52% from the floor and 2 for 6 from 3. You couldn't ask for a better outing and a better first 2 games from him. Chet Holmgren, just the same, where his shot, even though tonight it was only 3 for 8. I say only, right? That's still good. But it wasn't the one miss he had on Sunday. just the physical shot looks so much livelier, right? Where it's quicker, it's smoother, and there's no hesitation in that shot, that you feel good about it because he's getting the pick and pop anytime he wants it. And why that's so key is the development of how he's getting them. He's setting much tighter screens, and SGA, to his credit, is rounding off those screens almost attached to Chet Holmgren, to where it's making his screens even more impactful and holding up guys. But guys are obviously trying to fight through that screen to get to Shai, because Shai's the biggest threat. And if you have any miscommunication on where to put your big whenever Chet is screening your guard to defend Shai, you get 2 on Shai, which 2 on Shai isn't a bad thing. But what that forces you to do is be perfect in your scram switches on the back end. You have to then everyone rotate and leave their guy and be engaged on the back end to know, okay, we're going to send 2 to Shai here, whether it's by design or miscommunication. Now let's react and slide over and someone pick up Chet. Memphis is doing a terrible job at it. Chet's getting open looks anytime he wants them in the pick and pop. Down the road, it's going to force teams to either stop letting 2 go to Shai or have to be crisp and tight in their rotations. Because what happens if you rotate to Chet and at least take Chet's right open look away, which is oftentimes a even difficult pass, because you have to get back, your shoulders squared from toward the rim to toward the opposite rim to kick it out to where Chet usually sets the screen around the top of the key and the slot. Well, logically, you're going to be rotating likely from the corner to the slot, from the slot to the top of the key, and then your big who left Chet will then fly out to the opposite corner, and your guard stays with Shai. And now, if you don't get out to that corner quick enough, it's an easier pass for Shai to then hit that man for an open 3. So it just puts you in such a bind whenever Chet is screening this way, that Chet needs a lot of credit for that, plus his rebounding effort. He's been excellent on the glass. Another double-digit rebounding game from him, 11 rebounds in this one, 20 points, 5 blocks against 1 foul. And you might call it 4 blocks. Perhaps he had a goaltend in there. Who cares? His activity on the rim is just so forceful. Chet's the reason why they didn't score 100 tonight. And I think that you should parade that stat around. I think that you should wear that stat with the badge of honor, that Memphis, who only was held under 100 points once in the regular season, is now held under 100 points twice in a row in the playoffs. But it was because of Chet at the rim and his disruption there to collect those 5 blocks that allowed that not to happen at the end of the game. But you can see the impact that he has as an elite defensive player and the chemistry that he and Hartenstein has found. And it's happened just the way we thought it would, right? Where back at the end of the All-Star break, coming out of that All-Star break, I was telling you that I thought that they found their rhythm on offense. They just have to find their identity defensively. And these 2 guys have talked about it a lot, where what they found is, and Hartenstein told me this in our exclusive interview on Thunder on SI, what they found is, like, sometimes they're both going for blocks. That just cannot happen. You kind of lose some of your leverage in this scenario whenever you get 2 bigs in the air. And it makes for easy dump offs. It makes for easier decisions. It makes for easier looks at the rim because both of you are going for blocks. They've been very disciplined on that fact. I've liked the idea that the Thunder have implemented of having Chet be attached to Edey and technically be Edey's man at times, and letting Hartenstein be a bit of the roamer, which is kind of inverse from what we thought in July might happen. But most importantly, what the Thunder have done, even with those 2 bigs on the floor, has been they've been elite in scram switching, but they've also been elite on that same tone in the pick and roll of playing drop and trusting Lou to fight over the screen, because your bigs are so athletic, and Hartenstein too, but and Holmgren especially, and so athletic that you trust them to hold up Ja on a drive. You're either going to have Lou fighting over the screen and contesting a 3, or running him off the line and funneling him into really good paint defense by Holmgren or Hartenstein. And then Lou's going to recover and get back to Ja. And then Holmgren or Hartenstein can peel off and grab Edey again. And now the advantage is gone. And now you've really discombobulated Memphis's offense, which is having a hard time even getting started. So I just think that the big men deserve a lot of credit. Both of them had double-digit rebounds. Hartenstein had 10. He had 6 points and 3 assists to go along with 1 block of his own, 6 blocks between the 2, 5 of which came from Holmgren. But I think that this game, it was all about the defense, because that's what really willed them to this dub. But there was more about Shai. There was more about the complementary pieces all coming up. I want to say right now, our good friends over at Amazon Fire TV. Did you know your Fire TV is also an Xbox? Turn any TV into a gaming and entertainment hub with Fire TV and Fire Stick 4K devices. No console required. Just grab your paired controller, subscribe, or sign in to Xbox Game Pass Ultimate with EA Play included, and you're ready to play. You can dive into thousands and hundreds of premier titles from EA Sports College Football 25 to Call of Duty Black Ops 6. You can check it out today, and it is a great, affordable, and portable gaming with high-quality Xbox games at a fraction of the cost of a console. Already have a console, a Fire TV 4K device is more affordable and easier to travel with, allowing you to take your games with you and plug them in wherever you go. Check it out today because they have great technology. It makes for the no latency. It makes for great streamability of your games. Head to amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On to get started today. Xbox Game Pass Ultimate subscription and compatibility controller required. Available on select devices, including Fire TV Stick 4K second generation, Fire TV Stick 4K Max first and second generation, and Fire TV Cube third generation. Check it out today at at amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On. We're back on the Lockdown Thunder podcast on the Lockdown Podcast Network, your teams every day. Thank you so much for making us your first listen every single morning, every single day. We're here for you talking Thunder basketball. So the Thunder get a lopsided win in a game in which they only shot 1% better, really less than that, because it was 42.9 to 43.3 from the floor, and 1% better from the 3-point line, and when less than 1% better from the floor against Memphis. But it was because of what they did in terms of winning the possession battle, in terms of winning the rebounding battle, in terms of the hustle plays, and because their defense was so lights out and made life just miserable on Memphis, who does not have the playmakers to even compete with OKC. Now, large credit to that is from Isaiah Joe and from Cason Wallace. Cason Wallace ends up with 5 points. He has 3 assists, 2 rebounds, a steal, and a block. He shot 50%. One of his makes was a 3. One of his makes was him playing off the catch. Got it in the corner, pump fakes, drives to the rim, gets a dunk, and that is a translatable skill from what you've seen him grow with and develop with all regular season long. To see that be parlayed into playoff success has been great. You know what Cason is defensively. He's elite. Now you look at Isaiah Joe, who is another great developmental story. If I told you Isaiah Joe went 1 for 5 from 3, you'd have automatically assumed that he had a poor game. But instead, because of what he's made himself as a defender, he can shoot poorly and still be very impactful. He has 2 assists and 4 rebounds. But we've talked about how Memphis has struggled. How have they struggled? Through the turnovers. How have those turnovers happened? It's not always just the guy who gets credit for the steal. It's not always just the act of the turnover, maybe the deflection or the steal. It's oftentimes what's been set up in the sense of this. Memphis is limited when their guards are handling the ball. They don't make good decisions. They don't have high processing. They don't have good feel. And so when Ja and when Dez are putting the ball on the deck and trying to get to the rim, Isaiah Joe is really showing in that gap and playing it really hard, and it's forcing an early pickup. And now you've got to make a decision. You're picking up oftentimes at the elbow, and now you go airmail and you're too far away for a layup or a dunk, and you have to either decide for a floater, which is also not great because you haven't beat your man off the dribble, and now you just got to throw the ball somewhere, and it leads to steals, right? And it leads to turnovers. But Isaiah Joe, there's no stat to quantify him playing the gap, and he's done that exceptionally well. And Isaiah Joe, on top of being a really good secondary defender, he's also a guy who now you look at, and when he gets switched on to Ja Morant, who's the best player for Memphis in this series, you have a ton of panic, right? Is he at the top of your list? If you could map out who has every possession against Ja, he's not at the top of your list, but he's close enough to the top to where you don't freak out and try to leave someone to go get a switch and then get caught up trying to switch that and PO switch it, and it'll give up an open three. You just live with the results because you trust Isaiah Joe to compete and his lateral quickness is completely underrated. Plus, his core strength to be able to not be bullied is underrated. And Isaiah Joe has translated what's been a very strong stride from him defensively to the postseason. That's been good to see for OKC as well. It was really Joe and Wallace and Caruso who popped from the bench, and as well as Wiggins's ambarage of offense, even though he only ends up with a +2. He was technically involved in their worst lineup of the night, but it was not because of Wiggins's offense. He was 4 for 6 in this game. When you look at this Thunder team, though, you've got to feel very good. Lou Dort has been sensational on the defensive end. Hit a couple threes tonight, 2 for 7. A quiet offensive night for Lou, but it was a quiet offensive night for a few segments of this game for the Thunder. And it was because you have guys like Lou to defend, and that's what the Thunder team has shown you throughout the season, going back to the regular season now and postseason. They do not let whatever's happening on either end of the floor impact the other. And oftentimes NBA teams intertwine those two things. If you're not hitting your shots on offense, you start to press. You start to disassociate, disengage on defense for a plethora of reasons. You're thinking about the offense, you're complaining to the officials, or you're just in your head too much. And it unravels your defense as well once you let go of the rope offensively. And then when you get the ball offensively, now you are pressing and you're trying to force up shots, and this team doesn't do that. Whenever they have a bad night, they trust that on the offensive end, somebody will step up, somebody will pick this team up, and they don't have to play hero ball. But defensively, to not let the offensive struggles get in the way of things, to not let the offensive struggles burden them to the point where they're not playing sound defense is a rare trait. It's a very rare trait. And I think it comes from the understanding of we can parlay this defensive success into offense because of how successful they are in transition. But also it comes from they're so good that if they just simply get stops, they're going to win. Like they're so good that if they out hustle you and outwork you, they already have the talent advantage. And then at the end of the day, you're not having a good offensive night. And then internally, we're also not having a good offensive night, but better than you, just flat out better than you. We have a guy in Shai who can just bomb away 2 threes whenever you get the game back down to 8. We have a guy you can count on in J-Dub now in the fourth quarter, right? Like this is, I think, one of the most impressive abilities, just behind their true implementation of 0-on-0. Because it's easy to talk the talk. You know, look, Ja did it, right? Of like, hey, they won this game, we win game 2, it doesn't matter. To Ja's credit, he did promise that they'd play better, and he's a man of his word. They did play better, just was not good enough. And now you're looking at game 3, and oh my goodness. I don't know. The scariest part to me about Memphis is when you close your eyes and think about their path to a win, it almost has nothing to do with the Grizzlies, right? It's completely out of the Grizzlies' control. When you close your eyes and think about a win, you're thinking about the Thunder having an outlier game where this 0-0 mindset and this team that's built on this 0-0 mantra just doesn't show up, because you have no answer if you're Memphis to force them not to show up, to force them not to play good offensively. You just do not have a good defense. You just don't. And even tonight, whenever the Thunder's offense dried up, it was not from a lack of good looks. It was from a lack of just making them. And that's not in your control either. If you're still conceding the good looks, it's a make or miss league, yes. But if you're giving them good looks and they just aren't going in, you didn't really do a ton to force that to happen. And offensively, you can't magically acquire a playmaker at this point in the season, and you can't magically acquire a good defender. I think that the best Memphis can hope for, really, they disbanded the idea that they could win the series before the series even tipped off. But now you might shift and say, probably can't win a game, but you can play for some pride and not continue to just be bludgeoned. Can you have one game like the Pelicans did, where it came down to a last-second CJ shot, and that was your best shot? You still didn't get the win, but at least you had one competitive game. So far, Memphis is over. That has a lot to do with OKC. That has a lot to do with what the Thunder have done to the Beale Street Ballers. We're going to Memphis, so I'll see you there on Beale Street, Graceland, Elvis Museum. It'll be a lot of fun. Will the series end in Memphis? Will we be recording the end of round 1 on Saturday in the FedEx Forum? Let me know down below on YouTube and let me know on Twitter at Rylan_Styles. And until next time, be good and be good to one another.